All right, I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission for Town of Telluride for March 27th.
Sound on, so it's reverberating. Okay, sorry.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
All right. So we are called to order. I will start with Lachey.
Present.
Todd Brown, present.
Kathy Green, present.
Charles Dalton, present.
Peter Sante, present.
Angela Dye, Chair, present. And in the room, we have Piper Miller, our clerk, Ally Stanton, staff lawyer-esque,
Yeah.
Kristen, Clothier, our planner. Yes,
Ellen 11 from Town Council. I'm subbing for Dan.
are you?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good.
Interested member of the public, 7 Community Coalition.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Do we have anybody online?
Just staff members.
Okay,
You probably need to.
In the room, we don't need, yeah,
Oh,
people in the room are on too.
right. We were seeing if there was anybody else.
There's no one else to announce.
okay, very good. That was my question. All right, moving on. We have 3 versions of, or 4 of approval of minutes. Let's start with Planning and Zoning Commission retreat on June 22nd, 2024. My goodness, I'll entertain a motion unless,
That date should be June 26th.
is that what I said? I thought,
No, you
Oh,
said
it's
22nd.
oh, sorry.
Okay, I move to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission retreat, June 26th, 2024 draft minutes as presented.
Todd seconds.
Okay. Any discussion? Kathy, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Todd,
Todd, yes.
Lachey,
Yes.
Peter, yes.
Charles, yes.
Angela, yes. All right, second one. P and Z meeting minutes from August 23rd, 2024. That's the chair meeting.
Who was the chair?
Me,
Does that have to be through you?
I think that's how that works, right? I move to approve the minutes.
Yeah, for an action, not for a chair with nobody else was there, you
Right.
can just approve them. And it's
Okay.
an action that you don't have to take a vote on.
Okay, I will approve the chair minutes of August 23rd, 2024. And chair meeting minutes from February 21st, 2025. Anyone?
That's chair again.
That's chair.
Oh,
So you skipped
Yes.
3, you went to 4. You can approve the 4.
Yeah, sorry, my agenda is not up to date apparently. So, P and Z chair meeting, I approved those as well for the February 21st, 2025 meeting. And was there a 4th
Yes.
set? Yes.
I move to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, November 21st, 2024, as draft minutes as presented.
Second.
Todd seconds.
All right, any discussion? All good? Peter,
Peter, yes.
Charles, yes.
Kathy, yes.
Todd, yes.
Risha, yes.
Angela, yes. Okay. Sorry about that glitch, but we're good. All right, any staff announcements, Kristen?
All I can say is that I'm delighted that we have finalized a date for the retreat and training for the P&Z. And I will send out more information before that May retreat. And I'm really looking forward to spending that time with you. And I'll bring in some interesting speakers and we will be off-site for that retreat.
Great. So it's what time to confirm for everyone?
3:30. The 6th.
May 6th.
And you expect it to go to what time?
I'm picturing 2.5 hours.
And I'm just for the record here, the site of that meeting.
To be determined, but
Oh, okay.
not here, off-site,
Never
somewhere
mind. There will be
wonderful
a
in
bus.
Telluride.
There will be a bus that will take you to some undisclosed
The location. Yeah,
We'll see what I
Okay.
plan.
thank you, Kristen, for arranging that. We can talk details at some point. Any public for comment? Either in the room or elsewhere? Okay, so we'll proceed on. Action items. We have to appoint a person to the Town of Telluride Ethics Commission. And Kristen, as far as I know, that has not met in decades.
Pass.
Know that one?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
It has not met in decades.
All right, see?
Wow.
But we do need to have a representative in case an issue arises. Anyone care to nominate or be there?
Be there.
All right.
You like the sound of that, do you? Yeah, I understand.
All right, Lee Shea has volunteered to be nominated. Someone want to officially nominate her?
I would be happy to nominate Lishay to be on the Ethics Commission for
All
P
right,
and Z.
in a second?
Yes.
I would like to
That's
make a
the
motion for Lishay to be the P and Z member on the Ethics Commission.
Okay, a second.
Todd seconds.
Oh, got it.
Okay, Todd got it.
Roll for the,
Yeah.
Right. Okay, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Peter, yes.
Charles,
Charles, yes.
Kathy, yes.
Todd, yes.
Lee, you can,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, Angela, yes. All right, thank you for stepping up. That's great. So we also are on the vending subcommittee. Kristen, can you explain? I think that's the first I've heard. Or Piper.
So per the land use code, or maybe it's the municipal code, the vending subcommittee is comprised of 2 members of council and 1 member of the planning and zoning commission. And Charles has held that role the past so many years.
Have you? Very nice. I've forgotten that. Thank
You
you.
know, it actually has to meet twice a year, you know. it's-
It does usually meet, right?
It does.
Always.
Twice the
sometimes
obligation of
special.
my role.
All right, very good. Who would like to step up for that? Or did you fill in any details about what the call?
Or does Charles want to
Um,
keep going?
That's
I
possible.
will be happy to keep going, but if someone else wants to step in, they're happy to do it. We've already had our meeting for this. We had our meeting today, so you wouldn't have a meeting again. Paul.
Great. Shall we reappoint? Okay, I'll take a motion for his reappointment.
I
Kathy,
move that we reappoint Charles Dalton to the vending subcommittee.
I'll second that.
Peter, thank you. All right, discussion. All those in favor? I'll go, Leisha.
Yes.
Todd, yes.
Kathy, yes.
Peter, yes.
Charles, yes.
Angela, yes. All right. Done and done. Okay, then we're going to go to the meat of the meeting here. The status update on the comprehensive plan. Kristen, I think you're going to introduce that for us, right?
Yes, one moment. Okay, I thought I would take this opportunity this evening to reconvene the Planning and Zoning Commission and just give you a brief update on the comprehensive planning process that the town is embarking on and of which you will be a part of course, and high level. So I will walk us through, and then I plan during our May 6th retreat and training session to give you a deeper dive, and we may even have part of that be a work session pertaining to the comprehensive plan, depending on the timing with our consultants and other elements of that project. But looking forward to engaging this group and really want to make sure you feel updated on status and sort of progress and how we're going to move this project forward as a community. So, as you know, our goal is to develop a new comprehensive plan for the town of Telluride. The project timeframe, March 1st of this month to February 28, 2026. The bulk of the work will take place in 2025, and then the finalization and approvals will take place in early 2026. The project consultant, as you know, went through a whole RFP process, and Logan Simpson was selected. I can say that I have met with their team multiple times at this point, and it is a robust, talented, dedicated group, a lot of Telluride local connection as well, but the backgrounds that are being brought to this project include economic development and community planning and GIS and communications and community engagement, a whole range of expertise that is on the team that they have selected to be our team for this project. So I'm thrilled that we'll get to work with them. Thus far, I've only had preliminary meetings. First, myself and Zoe Donal, our town manager, had the initial meeting. I've met with them one-on-one a few times. And then this afternoon, I also had a meeting where Lindsay, our communications manager, was part of a meeting with their communications and community engagement point person, just to begin the process of developing that community engagement piece of the project, which I will bring you fully up to speed on at our next P&Z meeting, because at that point we will have it fully fleshed out with a high level of detail. So just to remind all of us, how we got to this process. The comprehensive plan will, of course, serve to define and guide the town of Telluride's future, with the recently adopted 2023 Telluride Community Vision and Action Plan serving as a starting point and resource for a more comprehensive analysis of existing conditions, constraints, challenges, and opportunities. And I know you're all very familiar with this, but I want to kind of go over the background for the public as well, and just make sure that you're fully engaged at the outset. So the comprehensive plan is the next step following the community vision planning process to direct policy, programs, and projects that align with the principles of livability and the core values described in the community vision plan. So the comprehensive plan will outline a future consistent with the vision statement of the community vision plan. And that vision statement was, or is, a livable Telluride will remain a sustainable, authentic, and connected community. We are a small mountain town that embraces and sustains its distinctive natural setting, advances its reputation for innovation and cultural heritage, and remains true to its roots as a livable and genuine community for future generations of residents, workers, and visitors. And thank you to all of you who participated in that visioning process. I wish I had been here for it, and I'm really glad I'm here to be part of the comprehensive planning process with you. So the comprehensive plan will clarify the accomplishments and progress from past planning efforts, including the Telluride Master Plan, which was adopted in 2006 and updated in 2012, and identify new opportunities building upon that progress. So this is timely. This is, an opportunity for all of us to come together as a community to move our vision forward. The principles of livability, including housing, economy, community, environment, and infrastructure, outlined in the community vision plan, will be more carefully and thoroughly examined in the interest of developing an inclusive and achievable long-range comprehensive plan for the town. So I want to emphasize this piece. Of course, the town strives to ensure participation of citizens and community engagement in every stage of decision-making. Participation of citizens, developers, landowners, business owners, full and part-time residents, appointed and elected officials, and other stakeholders throughout the community is paramount to the success of the new comprehensive plan. So again, in the initial meetings with the consultants, just with staff, a lot of the discussion has centered on that community engagement and communications piece. And there will be many, many different elements of that process. And again, I will provide you with a more detailed update and opportunity for input at our next meeting. But they, broadly, open houses, public meetings, outreach sessions, one-on-ones, small group sessions, strategies that are both virtual and in person, really trying to bring the community together, ensure that unrepresented voices are heard, ensure that we really get a breadth of input from the community into the process. And again, we will have that more detailed community engagement piece, and you as the Planning and Zoning Commission will be engaged early on in that process. The team at Logan Simpson, they plan, we don't yet have the dates finalized. I will certainly share them with you as options as soon as I receive those, which might be as soon as tomorrow. But they are planning either in May or potentially June, May or June, to come on site in person and be here for a few days. And during those days, they want to have a one-on-one with this group, with a number of key groups, town council, of course, in the community. They'll have some focus group sessions and one-on-one conversations, meetings with staff, and really just kind of begin that initial process of community engagement and receiving input. So I'll give you a heads up as soon as I know when that will take place. And they really want to have one of those sessions be with the Planning and Zoning Commission, of course, in the early stages. This is showing you, and it's hard to see here, but it will be in the materials, in the record for this meeting. So you can look online, or I can also provide it to you if you would like. This is their framework for how those 3 phases will roll out. So it's in 3 phases: foundation, visualizing livability, and plan development, beginning from March to June, then extending from July into November, and then the 3rd stage following that. So this is just a visual, and now here's some more details on those 3 phases. So the first phase, the foundation phase, runs from now until the end of June. And it's possible it could run, it's a little malleable. So if more time is needed for this phase, there'll be a little adjustment, perhaps, but this is the aimed for timeline. So of course, project initiation, that's happening now. The community engagement plan and branding, that is going to follow from that meeting I had this afternoon with Sophie on their team and Lindsay on our team. Evaluation and crosswalk of existing plans. So we're providing them with resources, all the existing plans in the town, just kind of getting them the background they need, the foundation. And they've already done a lot of that background work in coming in for that RFP process as well. But we're going to give them volumes of resources to work from in terms of available resources. They'll be doing a community profile based on everything they collect, and then moving into those listening sessions, trail talks, town tours, engagement pieces. They have hillside huddles, drop-ins, all kinds of creative ways to bring people together in roundtable discussions and really have those conversations. And one thing I really can say, as everyone worked to select this particular consulting firm, they are creative. They have a lot of ideas for how to bring in our youth, and, really thinking about how to utilize both in-person but also technology, and really capture with a lot of strategies that will hopefully enrich the ultimate plan. So then phase 1 will be finalized. So the second phase is the visualizing livability phase, and this runs from July till the end of November. So this is where there's the process of vision refinement and townwide frameworks and priority analysis, peak perspectives, immersion lab, really the deep dive on data collected, information gathered, community input, how to start to, as that team, and then working with the town to pull together the plan. And finalization of that stage then rolls into the plan itself. So here's the plan development from November to February. And again, most of the work will happen in 2025, but it will be in that finalization approval process subsequently. So in the final phase, it's the goal and strategy development, the future land use plan, plan management metrics, the draft plan development, and community celebration ultimately, and getting to that point, and then adoption, draft of comprehensive plan, and the adoption hearings and the transmittal, which ultimately will come through you and up to town council and get approved, again, aiming for the end of February for having that in place. And then at that point in time, we collectively and our staff will move into the phase of updating our land use, our code. So code updates, extensive code updates for the town of Telluride based on the outcomes of our comprehensive planning process. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there too, to realize some of your priorities through that exercise as well. And that'll extend for the full year afterwards. And there'll be interactions, obviously, between staff and this group as we work through land use code updates. So I'm excited to get to work with all of you. I know so many of you have so much knowledge and history and experience in this community, and I hope that you'll find it to be an extremely engaging process. And please, I'll just put this out there as we're just beginning to embark on this. Please let me know. Please ensure that I hear your input and that your contributions are getting woven into the steps as we move it forward.
Yeah, thoughts.
As you have probably read, during the visioning process, the infrastructure piece was a big concern of a lot of people,
Mhm.
especially us. And the wastewater treatment piece of that is a huge chunk. Things have changed since we went through that visioning with Mountain Village's pending acquisition of the property down Valley. So as you went through that, I didn't see any outreach to the surrounding, Mountain Village and Aldosoro and all the people who are
Lawson.
likely to be
Yeah.
Lawson. And a sewer district, if that is the way it goes. I just want to make sure that we don't do this as some other communities have done in their own bubble.
Yes.
Then decide, oh, that's the way it's gonna be, and you guys can go do your own plan and forget about it.
I think that's a really important piece and important point to bring up at the outset. Absolutely. What I was just going through is so high level
Yeah,
without any of the details. So when it's referring to focus groups and engagement, absolutely making sure that all key stakeholders, and I didn't get into the details, but when I come back to you at your next meeting, I'll have many more of those details and be looking for gaps that hopefully you can identify if we missed anything. But that is critically important. And I think the other piece besides stakeholder engagement in the broadest sense, and those who will be impacted by this plan and the implementation of it, another piece of that, and this is within the town, but something I've been working on and will do a lot of, is engaging each of our departments within the town as well. So you mentioned public works. So I've started to engage the directors of each of our departments, including Parks and Recreation, Public Works, starting to have those conversations, because what I want to make sure, and we all want to make sure, is that there are all these plans that are in place for specific departments. And what we want this plan to be is the highest level that then links back to those plans, which are the implementation strategies for specific departments, and make sure there's that connectivity between the big picture plan and the more detailed on the ground execution plans within each of those departments. So I'm having those conversations early. I want to make sure that our department heads and their departments and our staff are all very engaged as well, so that this outcome of this project is really reflective of all stakeholders, all staff, all of the community. And I'm glad you flagged that, Todd, because I think it's important for us to have that in mind as we work through developing that engagement plan. So thank you.
Kathy,
Yes.
Are we gonna do a survey?
Yes, so that's
It's out there now, isn't it?
So that's a very good question. So the survey, I'll answer it a couple different ways. The survey that's out there now is actually not a survey specific to the comprehensive planning
Thank God.
process. It is a survey. I was not engaged in its development, nor was Logan Simpson. It is a survey that, just for clarification, is something that the town does on an annual basis. I believe that this is their second or maybe third, but I believe second year of a consistent survey to capture data and have sort of trends over time from our communications department and reporting up to our town council. So so that's that piece, and that's going to be an annual outreach to the community. For the comprehensive planning process, there are certainly, that is a data source, a source of data for the process, but there will be more more specific surveys to the comprehensive plan, more engagement opportunities. We were talking about that through the community engagement strategies. So there will be other layers of data collection specific to the comprehensive plan and utilizing all of the resources that are available.
Okay, our
Is that-
first master plan was adopted in 1986. Probably in 85, we did a survey. RCC did it. And many of those questions were asked on the subsequent master plan surveys, whether we ever got through the adoption point or the upgrading point or not. And there were some things I found fascinating and horrifying in a way. And I really want the new survey to ask many of those same questions, like what came back in 1986 is that the average resident, and this might have been an adult resident in the town of Telluride, owned 2.3 motor vehicles.
Mhm.
That's a lot. I mean, and we also said we were environmentalists, so we're motorhead environmentalists, and we've never dealt with parking. And I think, today, if you started counting, I don't know where electric bikes would fall into this, the number might be bigger instead of smaller. And I think that's a critical thing for anyone in development and planning to know, that we don't have one family with one car. If we have a family, they're gonna have 3 or 4. And some of those things might be motorcycles or dirt bikes, but there's gonna be a lot of them. I want that question on there. And I don't know if I can find my 86 survey or not, but I really hope that they will go back to the previous surveys and ask those data points, because I want to see how they've changed. I think that's super important.
I think that's a really important point, Kathy, and we definitely are giving the consulting team, Logan Simpson, access to all of the past plans, planning processes, and I'm sure they will be pulling, but I can say, as I hear you speaking, perhaps there's an opportunity there as we're looking for those questions that could carry through. I'll ask them if there might be an opportunity to have like a test group, a focus group, where perhaps members of this committee might volunteer to try out a survey prior to its larger launch and see if anything is missed, if there are other ideas you might have. I can't guarantee, because there's always that balance between the number of questions you put on a survey and response rates. So they may not be able to include everything, but there may be different surveys, different touch points, and different ways they can collect the data we're looking for. And I could see that being a very valuable exercise. So I'll speak with them about that. I don't know the timing for survey outreach and whether they'll do it as a big thing or spot questions that kind of come through to keep people engaged.
Yeah,
Which
and I'm
would be-
just going to tell a few history stories,
Sure.
because I have not been, the design guidelines, first ones were done by the time I moved to Telluride, but we already had a we kind of had a land use code when I started on this board. It was a stack of ordinances literally this tall that you were handed when you joined the board.
Oh my.
And an earlier town attorney made it into our first LUC about this thick, which was much more manageable. But the first master plan was adopted in 86. I don't know if we forgot something. The next one in like the mid-90s, we're planning and whatever. And we had all these things we needed: parking, employee housing, industrial space. I'm trying to remember. And we put them all on the tailings, because that was right there. It was flat. It looked good, we took everything and just stuck it over there. And then approximately 10 minutes later, it was probably like 2 years later, or a year later, the whole settlement deal came down and there's nothing on the tailings. So, and I mean, it was just really funny that we dumped everything we needed space for there, and then it was taken away almost immediately. Then we did the 2006 survey, master plan, worked on it really hard, got it all adopted. And then we realized we totally forgot about early childhood education and daycare. There's not one word in that master plan about that. So we've made some accidental oversights. And I don't know, the fact that the whole wastewater treatment plant could move down to Ilium is a different twist, and how the major utilities in the region are organized. So I just want to be aware and to know that we've done some inspirational things. I mean, putting all that stuff on the tailings pond was great. We had room for everything. Yeah. I think we even had a few extra ball fields out there.
Okay.
But anyway, but you know, then in a year or two, it was like nothing, not, you know, deer can walk around up there, but no people. So I'm hoping that we can try to not overlook childcare this time and not overlook that there's a lawsuit going on that's going to take away all the uses. Because it's a big deal, super fun thing, whatever. Because I'm just saying we've made mistakes that I wish we'd not made.
I appreciate you sharing some of the history and also those insights. I hope to think that with the consulting team and the strength of the team that's going to be supporting us in this effort, that they will use a number of strategies to ensure that we are comprehensive in what we bring into that plan. But I think flagging something like early childhood education and childcare as part of the process early on, things that you know from your past experiences, having those come through is really important. But we'll rely on their expertise, their resources, their capacity as well to help ensure all that is collected and feeds into it. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I was just going to
Questions?
mention that big graph that we couldn't read.
I will make sure you receive it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of us have plans and make plans and have obligations. So I'd like to keep as many of us involved as possible as we go through this. But we need to know when that's going to be
And
done
by,
in a
yes,
general and a very specific sense. 'Cause
absolutely. For that, it's very general and it's just based on their scope of work. But by your April meeting, because this is being worked on currently, there will be specific timelines. And honestly, I'm hoping we get to specific dates for some of those roundtables, discussions, dates as options that might work for a P&Z input session. I'm hoping to have that specificity within the next month at the latest, but it might even
How
be
can we
sooner.
input to you though about some
Yep.
constraints that people might
So
have?
what I will do, I think what might be most efficient is let me work with them because the consultants need to be available too. So I need to get a sense of when they can be here, when they picture those windows of time, and then put it out to find out what works like I've been doing. I might set up some polls to make that easier because I know the scheduling is challenging, but anyways, as efficiently as I can, get your input and make sure we find a time that works for
Yeah,
hopefully
based on what
all.
we just went through with the
I know.
retreat.
I will simplify
I'm
the
just
system
kidding.
moving forward. So thank you for your
Yeah.
patience with that.
A past thing we did in scheduling, and Peter might have been on Hark for part of this, it was kind of brutal, it's always harder for Hark. We would meet twice a month. We met on the first and the third Thursdays back then, and now it'd be the second and the fourth, and maybe spreading them apart is bad. We should put them a week apart. And we'd have one meeting for plans, plan review, and one meeting for long range planning. And Todd might have been on an earlier session of that. And that was helpful just to break it up and make sure we had fresh minds and lots of time to do the long range planning, which is super important. But maybe we're not going to have enough plan review for planning and zoning for that to be an issue. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Yeah. But that's what we've done in the past. And we knew that months in advance or years in advance. You were like, okay, every other Thursday, I've got to be in town. We didn't have Zoom. I have to be in town. I have to go to these meetings. And so that's kind of what Angela and I are asking for is, if we know a regular schedule, a time commitment, then it's easier to bend your schedule to that.
That's helpful feedback. And in terms of plan reviews, I am aware that there will be projects coming down the pipe and into the Planning and Zoning Commission in the next
May-June
block of
timeframe.
time, I would say, and not in my hands yet, but forthcoming. And so just to give you an awareness of that. But I mean, if we're able to do both in the same meeting, it means you have to not block out as much
Right.
every other week time, if that's better, or if breaking things up works well for this group, that's certainly something we can think about clearly after the spring break when everyone's back. I think flexibility there, it helps me to know that you prefer a rhythm, because then I can work with the consultants in terms of the touch points with the Planning and Zoning Commission to figure out what rhythm could balance with what their vision is for how they're engaging different groups. So
And
that's
then
super helpful. Maybe
the
that'll
other-
come a little later in the process, though.
The other warning is early May is still pretty much off season. It means a lot of people are gone. Later May might work for them to be in town, but since we get very few site visits of them in town, June, even if might have to be gone because of my family situation, it's, it might be more productive than them coming when no one's here. And every weekend in May,
Right.
this town is empty.
And that's, this is very helpful. That is something I was speaking to them about. They sort of had that May timeframe
Mm.
in their sketch, and I'm thinking we push it a little bit out further, like June, July, the busy, like, let's kind of try to hit the center of
Yeah.
everyone
That's
being.
knowledge of a ski town,
So.
seasonality.
Yeah, and so I'll work with them on that and figure it out. I think this first touch point is in part to start to meet with key groups and staff and just kind of get them here and sort of thinking through data and resources, but there will be many more touch points as well. So I'll have, I think the emphasis for the community engagement roundtables will be a little bit pushed out, but they do want to get started too. So I think they're trying to find that balance.
And I mean,
So-
just a rule of thumb for you, because you're more recent, that you've come across the Great Divide, as I like to call Dallas, to us, is if the gondola is not running, there's a whole lot of people that are not in town. Not that they operate the gondola, but that's just kind of a rule of thumb, and the gondola starts just before Mountain Film. So that's when people start kind of coming back to town and everything starts to open, though a lot of stuff doesn't open until June. And it's the same thing in the fall. Once the gondola shuts down, and we've had really blow-ups in the past, in the 80s and the 90s, of either town council or county commissioners holding meetings in April when no one was here.
Yeah.
And making these decisions, and you don't even want to go through that.
No.
Death through,
Yeah,
death
so
to consultants if they try that.
Really be careful about doing things during off-season.
I really appreciate your emphasizing that, and especially to the public as well. I absolutely agree. I think right now we're just in those very early getting the project started phases, but the deep engagement should take place during the times when
And
clearly
it's
people are
important that the
here.
consultants
thank you.
understand this,
And I will make
because
sure of that.
they are on a different kind of program schedule with all their projects.
Sure.
And they're thinking kind of like the same. They're trying to juggle when to do the same kind of process for probably 20 other projects. So earlier the better. Lishay, did you have any
agree.
questions?
Everything you've said.
Okay. Todd, anything else to add?
Just a big part of that community input will come from part-time residents who, as Kathy said, they're not here until end of June.
So what I will do is bring back to you that a draft of when
Yes.
those engagement pieces are sort of roughed in. And if it doesn't feel like it's reflective of what our needs are, I can, I'm back and forth with the consultants, I can make sure, but I think they've worked with a number of mountain communities like Telluride, and I feel like for the big opportunities for bringing people in, they get it, absolutely. And so it's just that first visit and the timing of it. I might even push
Right.
that out to June, depending on my sense of who might be here in the late May timeframe.
Peter, do you have any?
Not about discussion, no.
No. And Charles, nothing to add? Okay.
And of course, I have one more thing.
Of course, that's fine.
I was really frustrated during the visioning process because our consultant then did not want to look at the town of Telluride, just adopted climate action plan. They had not done it and they didn't think it was very good. I'm holding my nose up because they acted really nasty about it. And I happen to be also on the committee that kind of made that happen, the Ecology Commission. And so I'm thrilled that they want to, that our current consultants want to look at our old plans. Some of them need updating, some of them don't, but there's some history there. And then we've, you know, Parks and Rec, the River Trail, we have so many plans in this community. And this is the one that brings them all in and they have to look at them and not be snooty. Well, we didn't do it, so it's no good. I don't want to ever have a consultant like that again.
Yep.
No, this is going to be extremely comprehensive. And I think, you know, we also, I mean, there's been so much work done by collective community, staff, everyone to pull all of those rich plans together. So this really is that higher level, but it needs to pull in and pull those up into it and really honor all the work that's been done and ensure that it's not going in other, you know, we're trying to be pulling it all together. So I think that's really important for you to mention. I know that the approach of the current consultants is as much information as we can give to them to help them be able to then drive this process forward. So what I should probably do as well, perhaps at our next meeting, I might share with you the plans that I've provided to them, you know, because I will have done I'm working on a data dump right now, but to make sure nothing is overlooked that you are aware of with your knowledge and experience that they might use as a resource. So I can do that for the next meeting as well.
I have a question.
Sure.
Would you like to contribute to the conversation?
Right now?
Yeah? Do you have
Um,
any questions or what?
Well, something I did want to say is, we're looking at forming a wastewater authority, so we are gonna kind of like try and have all of the stakeholders have a seat at the table or a couple seats. So I agree, and yes, and we're working towards that. We selected the consulting company at town council, and part of the reason we selected them was we felt like they understood what we needed, and there were two people one person who grew up here is on the team and another person on the team lives in Norwood. And those were some of the reasons that we felt like they were the right team for us. So I hear your concerns and I think they'll understand your concerns, and they really sold us on how they wanted to move forward with this project.
Yeah,
But
we interviewed them before you heard them. So
oh, so you
Yeah.
selected,
Yes.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
think that I feel good about the team, and I took notes about some of the things that Kathy was concerned about, and I'll kind of give that in my summary. Told I make my summaries too long, so I'm trying to keep them short, so
It's hard.
but that felt important. But yeah, otherwise I'm glad that you guys are all part of the process.
I
Yeah,
think it's
so-
our process and town council approves it. I mean, that's the way it's always been for every previous master plan. This is a planning and zoning process.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't realize that you guys were at the head of the helm on this one.
yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
And
and I
it-
think
yeah,
for
The current town council takes a lot of things away from other boards, that's fine, or some of the recent ones have. But this process really is kind of initiated and finished here in many ways.
And I think sort of taking one broader step back, I really want to make sure that through this process, I mean, this group will have such an important part of it. I also want to make sure that our other commissions and, you know, all of the stakeholders really feel like they are very active, engaged participants. So I want to make sure it feels like that we set the tone for it. This is a community process, and how do we do that in a way that everyone feels like they're being heard in. And I think this consulting firm is really going to help us to do that as well. And then we'll have touch points within that. They'll have touch points with other groups as well, and just trying to pull in as much as they can to the process. And then it'll come, you know, we'll kind of have these connections along the way with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then ultimately it'll come to
Yeah.
town council. But you'll be very engaged as well because you're one of the stakeholder groups that is part of the process. So more to come. You'll
Yeah.
hear from me on Tuesday. So-
Well, I mean, the other thing I guess I would mention is just the ski resort sort of feels like the thing that we never want to talk about, but they feel like an important. I don't know if we want to call them out specifically, but
The
how
who?
the
Sorry.
ski resort. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just like how much do we incorporate the ski resort in our planning and yeah, like
Well,
are
we kind of
they
have to know what they're doing. though, don't we?
exactly, we're if it helps to know, we're
They have to know what they're doing.
yeah, and so we're
I was gonna
having
go there, but
Chuck Horning at our next
Yes,
council
I saw that.
meeting, supposedly.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that feels like a big question mark, at least in my own like visioning of what does Telluride look like? Because I feel like we have more questions than answers with the ski
Yeah.
resort. So that,
that's that regional involvement piece.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kathy,
We had better communication with the ski resort owners for the 86 and the mid-90s work we did on long-range planning. But I also point out our missing member, John Miller, is a planner for the ski resort. So we have kind of, more, he's gonna know, or hopefully he'll be reporting back, to
Yeah.
his boss on what's going on. So we have a direct link that we've never had before, which I think could be helpful.
I think it will be helpful because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to
Yeah,
get.
no, it's very,
concrete
very
information
strange
right
right
now.
now, but we were blessed with much better communication and good participation in those efforts that were in the 80s and the 90s. So,
Yeah,
we can strive for that, right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, we were
And I
more
think
at
we
war
have
in the
to
90s.
be-
We were in war with Mountain Village, but we were on good terms with ski company. It's kind
so
of weird.
that's flipped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things have flipped.
We
yeah.
have great relationships.
never
right now
know.
with Mountain Village.
But,
so-
and I
Thank you.
don't think our 90s plan, I don't think it ever got adopted. We went a long ways with it and then it just kind of blew up and, yeah, something happened. I think an outside enemy attacked us and we all forgot about it. We have these outside enemies that come in and distract us, which is often really good. I'll
Okay.
explain that some other
Yeah,
time.
yeah, right. Sorry, but maybe off the record, Chuck.
I think the only other thing I will say, sort of following first, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and for representing town council as a liaison today. That was excellent to have you here.
Yeah.
Park representative and now filling in for Dan, who is in a performance this evening and unable to be here, and he wishes he could be here. But the last thing I want to say is I'm going to do my very best because we have this consulting team and they're going to be, we only have so much staff capacity, so they are going to be putting in extensive time and work and resources to help us develop the best forward-looking plan that we can for the town. I am going to do my best to, through these meetings, through other touch points, to keep this group informed, up to date, and also to give you those opportunities to provide input and guide the process while they're, moving things forward, hopefully so they'll be moving. I will be doing my best, very best to communicate and to engage. Give me feedback along the way if you feel that there's more I should be doing to make sure that I'm hearing from you and feeding it back along the way. So welcome all input, all questions, all insights. I'm going to process everything I just heard this evening and make sure it gets fed back into the process. So thank you for all of this. This was a great conversation. Back at you, Angela.
Cool. Any other questions? Comments from the public? That would be you.
It's interesting to be
Could you
here.
go up to a microphone if you want to speak, please, and state your name?
Sure. Cami Nichols, I'm glad to be here and I'm interested in everything you all are saying. I'm interested in the relationship between the ski area and council and this commission, especially, I think, going forward, especially because I live in the West End and the Tier 7 development plan is quite important to me and a lot of other people in that region. So that's why I'm here and thanks for sharing.
Great. Yeah. Yes.
Kristen, I'm gonna pile on to Kathy's comments about some of the questions that were asked previously. In the data dump phase, which comes early, let's also look hard for things that aren't obviously there. When we were doing the visioning, the number of Hispanics in the community was not captured by the census information, and it was completely ignored. So there are some holes, and we'll have to figure out ways to find that information.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that this team of consultants is very focused on as well. And I can say that as they're talking about engagement opportunities, in addition, they're talking about some of those public engagement processes will be offered in both English and Spanish. They're talking about, ways to bring in diverse voices and really focused on how do we bring the richness of this community together into this process. And that's something they have a lot of expertise in as well. But I do think the demographics piece, making sure they have all the data that we have available, and then hopefully they will be, and I know they will be, spending time pulling in new data sources as well that we haven't had access to, that they can pull in to elevate. So if you see things that are missing along the way, let's keep, finding those items and passing them on, and they'll be happy to follow up for sure. Thank you.
Is that your presentation then?
Yes, that was it. I didn't want to, I mentioned this would be a short meeting, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to engage you early on, and we just started
Thank you
meeting.
for that.
So, okay,
Because the
great.
survey questions and some of the
Yep.
other plans, that we've all done in the last 10 years for the town are really important. That they get out early.
Yes. I will follow up.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to speak with them tomorrow. So, thank you.
So can we move on then?
Yep.
Board and
absolutely.
staff discussion, is there anything else? Yes.
We haven't had a lot of time with Kristen yet, and it's whatever, but sometimes in the past, and I know things have to change, but I'm still a little bit of a Luddite and paper person.
Little?
Yeah. No, I have my iPad that I usually bring. I knew
I
I
do
didn't
too,
need
yeah.
it tonight,
Yes.
but are we gonna get printed agendas at our spaces for us to take notes on and to track? Because it's really hard when you've got the reports or the PowerPoints or whatever up here, and then you were trying to figure out where you are on the agenda.
Yes.
And I don't want to have to print out 20 pages at home to drag down here. I want to print out 4 or something, that few, so that I can read a motion properly or something,
Mhm.
and that's it.
I'm happy to do that. Absolutely. I wasn't sure for this evening. I figured it was a short agenda, so I
Yeah.
just put it on the slide at the beginning.
That's fine. Yeah.
But in general, yes, I'll print you agendas, and you would like the packets as well
No,
for
no,
the,
I don't
just
think-
the agendas.
I think we'll ask if we need the packets.
Okay,
And
great.
sometimes the plans are really hard to read on your computer.
Yes,
So we might ask for those to
Great.
pick them up down here. So we
Perfect.
can see them at a better scale or a better way than trying to view them on a screen, and you can't get the whole
Make
page up
notes
at
too.
once.
Yeah, for anyone who wants paper packets, we are more than happy to do that. We do that for park members. And if that does help you, some people like them, some people don't. So you just have to tell me your preference. Some people prefer the digital. In terms of the agendas and motion sheets, absolutely, they'll be with you at the beginning of each meeting. Again, this one, I just figured this was going to be quick and
Right.
straightforward. So,
Yeah, and then one
yes.
of my pet peeves, but it probably shouldn't be, is when we get submittal after submittal. I mean, maybe we're starting a conceptual and moving up through the ranks, preliminary, all that. And we get the exact same 80-page geologic report. And I actually am a geology major. I like these reports, but I was like, I read this once and it hasn't changed. Why,
Oh, rock rolled
roll
down the hill.
Well, why don't they just do a special report on that and how it's relevant to their project if it is? And I don't want them to think that by submitting 500 pages or 300-page report to us, that's information that we've gotten the previous level of review and hasn't changed. I don't want to see anybody wasting their time or thinking that they're going to look more impressive by giving us more pages to review.
I hear what you're saying. So perhaps too, it can be clarity to you because you may want to refer back,
Oh.
but perhaps just indicating to you which items are new in
Right.
terms of what you're reviewing. So it's clear this is just, the background information you've seen. I can easily do that.
We got a geologic report that was for Uray and San Miguel counties for a project in the town limits. That was really helpful to review the situation there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good suggestion. though. Thank you.
a couple of things. One, you're going to give us the schedule so we can comment back to as early as possible on any projected timeframes for our engagement.
As soon
and
as
for
available.
Kristen's benefit.
Yes.
And second, I want to mention May 6th. Who is going to make it to that retreat?
I can.
So Todd is a maybe, but he's been through, whatever. Alicia and Kathy.
I'll be
Peter
traveling.
is Not,
I'm traveling. I can Zoom, but
okay.
can't.
I cannot. I will
Okay.
watch the video. Sorry,
Since
I will be here.
I will ask you this question based on all the earlier conversations about May and everyone still being traveling in May. I knew not April. Because I haven't yet finalized a venue, would it have been better for me to look to June? And is that the time when everyone could be in person? Because that always makes it more engaging, and especially if I am able to get one of the consultants to
after
come or a
June 16th.
training person.
It's
So.
after June 16th.
Okay, I just wonder, sense of the room, would that be, not that I
Early
want to
June
send you
is-
another poll, but,
Yeah, I know, here we go. That's why I asked the question, because I was hearing
Yes.
a couple of.
so,
Yeah, I
but do
can't
tell me.
maybes.
Okay, so mid to late June, I'm hearing maybe, should I try that before I mean, just
That'd be
because,
Better for you
Yeah.
guys.
okay,
And be conscious
okay.
of.
I'm seeing
yeah.
lots of nods.
Okay.
Okay, so let me give that a go. I will set up a fancy poll to make it easy instead of the emails, and we will
Well,
go with that route.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Yes, thank you.
There is bluegrass, obviously,
That
that's
I
a big thing.
I better schedule around all, yes,
Exactly.
all
To be
festivals of
sure,
all
I'm
sorts.
glad That this room is available during bluegrass. It usually turns into something else.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
thank you.
we were, actually, as Kristen and I were talking about it, we thought it would be a good
Oh.
thing to be outside of
Right,
this room.
right.
kind of put it
That's
in a different
great.
frame of mind and so
Right.
we weren't going to be here. So,
And not that I can hike very well at the moment, but we've done things in past master plans where we hiked up Judweeby just to this first big rock and sat there and looked down at the town. When we were working on lighting and streetscapes, and that was brought a subcommittee with various members from P and Z and Hark and others. We went up and down on the gondola just to the midpoint and back so we could look down at night.
I love
You know,
that.
sometimes we stopped at Allred's
Allred's,
and had a
of course,
beverage and
yes.
then came back down, but the town didn't pay for any of this. But there's been some real value in going out into the field.
Mhm.
When our early plan, we were gonna do the 3-mile plan that I don't think we're allowed to do anymore. We went way out on the valley floor that we did not have, or we went out and looked down at the valley floor. And so I think having some of that again might be good. I'm not promising I'll hike up Judweeby, but
Sure.
but having to go out in the field and really see the situation. We've
Mhm.
had some extremely productive bus tours with Hark and P and Z in a bus,
yeah,
driving around and looking
Nice.
at our successes and our challenges. And sometimes we had somebody like Nori Winters who was just here and we did not get to interact with. We'd have a person like that, an outside consultant, a specialist, as well as staff going around in this bus. And if, the press wanted to be there, the public, we couldn't have 50 people, but we could have a few. And those were I thought they were fun and productive because we see what's really going on.
Those are terrific ideas. Thank you for sharing that. I could see certainly if everyone were open in June, mid to late June, and available, we could extend the retreat to a little bit longer. If I'll float it out, there's a possibility, and then we would have time to do some of that on the ground, ride the gondola, and I also could quite likely get at least one of the representatives from Logan Simpson to run a session for us if it were in that timeline. That's more in the
Yeah.
timeline of those interactive.
Mhm.
So let me look to that, and any chance we have to get out together and in the field. So let's add that into our retreat agenda. I love it. Okay. Great.
All right.
Will
I
do.
think We'll wrap up then. Anything else?
Any other staff announcements or,
You're about to hire somebody else?
In progress, working
progress.
very hard on it and looking forward to having an update in the not too distant future on that topic.
Thanks for asking.
Sure.
No, I was afraid to ask, so thank you.
oh, no, I,
Okay.
Work in progress.
Sorry.
So-
We are going to adjourn then at 6:29 PM. Unanimous consent. No objections. Thanks, everyone.